Why do you think these new technology companies like Google and Apple are having these challenges in the marketplace today?
Simply because they're technology companies whose strategic focus is replacing labor and workflows with software. And for an ecosystem that is built around high IQ, big ego personalities, that is simply just not going to work. Look at all the times that Google has tried to penetrate the TV advertising market. They tried 3 times. They poured hundreds of millions of dollars into it, and they failed each single time. Same goes for eBay, same goes for Microsoft. The takeaway here is fairly simple. Media and technology folks just don't trust each other.
Do you think that that's changing? Do you think maybe Google was just too early, and that maybe it's a riper time?
I'm a little bit biased. I think the TV and cable folks are a lot sharper than their publisher cousins. So they see what happened to the publishing and music industry 10 years ago, and they're certainly not going to let a outside technology vendor solve their problems for them. Which is why you see the networks creating Hulu, for example. They're not going to let someone like Netflix control the narrative. They're going to create their own solution and control their own distribution and effectively box out the technology vendors.
But of course, then you have a Netflix that's now creating its own content.
That was the strategic problem because vendors, the networks like Discovery, first fell into the trap, when they thought, okay, it's zero marginal cost to me. I'll license it to Netflix. Any dollar I get, it's $1 in profit. That was the original problem. I don't think that is going to they're going to make that same mistake twice. And the way to think about it is, if you look at Netflix financial statements, the cost of programming, the cost of licensing content from the networks and studios have increased in the double digits for the past 8 quarters straight. So, in other words, people are extracting their pound of flesh from Netflix. And at some point, this is going to reach a point where Netflix simply, their margins will feel the impact of the licensing cost.
So their venture into original programming also has a high cost, but obviously a much higher return. How do you see that playing out?
My sense is they view that more as a hedge than anything else. Their nightmare scenario here is if the publishers, if the content creators and studios say, we're simply not going to offer you content at any given price. In fact, we're going to create our own version of Netflix and license our content to an in-house competitor, which they can do. The technology is there. It's probably going to cost them $100 million to create it, but the technology is there. So that's a nightmare scenario that they're trying to fend off. I don't think they view it as they're generating a higher return through original programming. They view it as a hedge, a worst case scenario. If the networks decide to cut off the supply, we have some capabilities in original programming.
What do you think, though, the likelihood is that the networks would cut off supply? It is a revenue stream.
It is.
It can be bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And Netflix stock, on another subject,
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't seem to be negatively impacted by Hulu at this point. What do you think the likelihood is?
I actually think it's fairly high. I'd say, if I'm a betting man, I would say 25% chance in the next 3 years. Remember, the key thing here is the technology is there. They've created a viable competitor in Hulu, which does over $1 billion in revenue. So they know how to work together and get it off the ground. It's simply a matter of, I think it's simply a matter of time.
So what about the technology aspect of this going forward?
It's not rocket science. It's not reinventing the wheel. It takes money, to be sure. You need to create roughly 70, 80 data centers in your top 100 DMAs to deliver the content. But the infrastructure is there. The physical assets of distributing content is there. The assets for hosting video, it's there. It's not a technology play anymore. It's a simple matter of creating the data centers that can deliver video to core markets. And in the way I think about it, it's simply a matter of time. $100 million is a drop in the bucket for your top 20 networks.